Hello and welcome to another IATEFL Live. I'm really happy because I have with me Anna Hasper, Learning and Teaching Development Specialist. Anna, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here, Trisha.
Anna, tell us a few things about your ELT journey for the people who are watching us from home.
What can I tell you? I started off as a teacher and got into teacher education, became a CELTA tutor, and now a teacher development specialist. So I love working with teachers to see how I can help them grow further and really specializing in empowering teachers to enable their learners.
And what are some of the challenges that you've had in this beautiful journey?
Of course, challenges is always when you end up working for yourself as a freelancer, is always making sure that there is some work coming in. I've been very lucky with the publishers, various projects and writing. And of course, most recently, we had the challenge that we suddenly moved more or less overnight to the online learning environment.
Absolutely. And how was the experience for you?
Challenging, of course, because all of a sudden you're in the middle of a course and you change to an online environment. Also because I think for all of us, I don't know if I speak for myself, but we might have taught online, but it was all asynchronous. And all of a sudden overnight, we had to just develop a way of tutoring on CELTAs in a synchronous context without knowing all the technology, without knowing actually what to do. So as a teacher educator, I was educating teachers to teach online, face-to-face, without actually having that background knowledge myself.
And how did your teachers react to the whole change with the pandemic?
I think there were two groups of people. Some people decided, can I put my CELTA on hold? We're not going to continue because I actually like to do this face-to-face, whereas other people took it in their stride and they really, finally, when we got to understand what we had to do, I think they really enjoyed the challenge. And the most interesting thing at the end of the course is when you talk to them, they said it was a very difficult transition because we were just finding our feet in the face-to-face classroom. But in the end, I've got a CELTA Plus, because I know now how to teach online as well. So that was actually really nice. But yes, of course, it was full of challenges and adventures. But
what would you say is one of the important lessons that we've learned from the pandemic as teachers, of course?
As teachers and as teacher educators, I actually think as a whole ELT community, for me, it's really that how strong this community was just amazes me. And I'm so proud to say I was part of this community because we were all helping each other. So normally when you work in your own classroom, they compare it to a bit of an egg crate. You're just in your own shell and you're not sharing. And all of a sudden we all had the same issue. The Facebook groups for CELTA Delta tutors were overactive. Everybody was connecting, organizing chats and catch-ups on Zoom or Skype just to say, hey, what are you doing? Do you have this challenge too? What's your solution or how do you deal with it? So we were really, really supportive. So for me, the power of community came out of this experience. And I hope we're going to bring that forward and keep that sharing. And the other thing I think that was really important was that we actually we've learned new ideas, new ways of teaching. And if you ask me, that wouldn't have happened if the pandemic wasn't there. And all tutors and all teachers in our community took it as a learning opportunity. I've not heard anyone say, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm leaving the profession. We're all like, okay, let's go and see what we can learn and put it into practice.
Let's get on with it, exactly.
That's amazing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. In zero time, we were able to build whole online worlds. And this is the power of the ELT community, isn't it?
Exactly. And as well, you're part of a school, but somebody else isn't, but you were invited anyway to the webinars. We were really supporting each other. And one of the reasons was maybe that social isolation, because we were all at home. And that worries me a bit. I mean, it's fabulous to be back face to face. It's absolutely fantastic that we can sit here. But that sharing time, let me go on Facebook. Let me just share what I did. I hope we keep sharing because there is so much more that you have different strengths. I have different strengths. So that community feeling, I really hope we keep that going.
I'm really, really glad that you've mentioned this because this was going to be one of my questions. Now that we're slowly coming back to normal and back to real life and seeing people from up close, how can we maintain this level of support and of global support? What can we do as teachers to continue learning like we did during the pandemic?
I wish I had the answer. I think it's a really big question, and that is something that we as a community probably need to find a way for as well. I think one of the things really to keep that community going is become a member of IATEFL or a SIG or your local teacher community, like Africa TESOL, for example, or wherever you're based. Share with teachers in your school. If there are no teachers in your school, but you've met someone at a conference, get sort of a PD buddy or a critical friend who you can share with. So it's really the question, how are we going to keep this together? Blogs, sharing, maybe YouTube, maybe podcasts. I think that has really taken off as well during the pandemic.
I absolutely agree. And I think that the best teacher development is the teacher next door, isn't it, to yours? So, Anna, one question that I want to ask you is about your presentation here at the IATEFL conference. So you presented on Tuesday.
I did.
On day one.
On day one. That's never happened. The first talk after the plenary from Naya, yes.
Oh, wonderful. First of all, what was the presentation on?
My presentation was about the role of the CELTA tutor, so 2.0, because I think we really need to revisit what our role is. It was all based, of course, on this sudden shift to the online environment. And the questions that brought up in my position, like, am I actually supposed to do this? Because what is your role as a tutor? You were teaching IT, digital literacies. You were actually also finding TP students because, of course, the centres we work for, they were not used to this either. Everybody was in sort of crisis mode. So we were working, as they call it, like emergency remote teacher training. So we've developed practices and habits that I'm wondering, is that actually what we should continue doing? So I started to research that a bit more, and I wanted to have the voice of us tutors to be heard, because there's a lot of discourse out there that has been given or provided to us. But what do we tutors actually feel? So I had 90 tutors who responded to my research and asked them, what's the main difference for you, face-to-face, online? And what are the key areas of knowledge and skills that you feel we need to have to make this work? Because I do believe, and I think it's a shame, I don't know if you agree, it's good to be back in a new normal, if we call it that way, but I don't think we should lose this online environment, like the mixed mode CELTA. It's beautiful. There's a bit online, there's a bit face-to-face. So we do need to see what we can take out of this as lessons. So how can we tutor online more effectively? Mm-hmm. And out of that, of course, came technology, which everybody said, that's a big difference. We need to have those skills to manage that. But social cohesion or group cohesion, that rapport building, that community building, wasn't a surprise for me either, that came out, that this is what we really need to develop as tutors. However, it was very closely linked to, if you want to develop that social connectedness with your trainees or with other tutors, you really need to be aware of the social cultural contexts.
Absolutely.
Because trainees from, let's say, certain countries in the Middle East who have all these issues with technology, they might even not have enough devices at home, they might have never worked independently on an asynchronous course. And then you have people who are quite used to this way of learning. So if you want to connect with them, if you want to support them as best as you can, you really need to know their local conditions.
And if you could give one piece of advice to the teacher trainers who are watching us from home to continue developing their practices, what would that be?
To continue developing their practices, sharing ideas. But I think also really important that you reflect on what you have learned. Is this actually still working, or have I developed this because it was a useful habit during the crisis? But maybe now we should sort of consolidate the things that work and question, is there another way of doing this? Because to go back to technology, I think a lot of us have used technology in a way that we can fit it in our face-to-face practice. We've replicated what we did. But technology also have affordances that can take us beyond what we already do. I mean, a nice example, for example, Padlet, when you do a writing lesson, it's much more authentic because they can respond directly, they can see each other's work, they can record feedback on each other's work.
And it's more relatable, isn't it?
This is it. So I think really reflect on what you do. Is it something that worked then? Can I make it even better? Because we're no longer in crisis mode. Absolutely. And of course, you don't need to do this alone. I say connect with others and ask them what they are doing.
I absolutely agree. We are not alone in the ELT community. And so you've been here in IATEFL for quite a while. How has IATEFL been for you this year?
It's been wonderful. It's so nice to just come back here and see so many familiar faces, even though some people you don't recognize because you haven't seen them without a face mask for years. But it's been so nice to reconnect, to talk about what they've experienced, but also to meet new friends because there's so many people coming for the first time. So it's really nice for them to get a taster of this as well and just to share and, of course, to learn. Because even though we teacher educators and maybe very experienced teachers, there's always so much to learn and research evolves, ideas evolve. So very, very nice to be back and really inspirational.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Now, my last, not question, but challenge is this. If you could describe IATEFL in 3 words, what would those be?
Engaging. Definitely, because I think the level of presentations is really of a high level. There's lots in there that you just, it's over already. You don't want to go. Of course, all the events around IATEFL as well in the afternoon and evenings, very much engaging. That community and that connectedness might well be my second word then. You feel reconnected, like you sort of touch base again, and we know we're going in the right direction to a new normality. And the last one, I would say developmental, because there's so much new out there. When you look at course books, when you find out what people have been doing in limited resource context with WhatsApp and Telegram, for example, during the pandemic, it's just really developmental. I think, oh, that's a great idea. Let me try it out. So, yeah, wonderful to be back.
Well, it's good to have you here as well. Anna, thank you very much for joining us today. Are there any future projects for you?
Future projects. There's always a lot of teacher development happening. Of course, in summer, it's normally CELTA, Delta courses that are coming up. And some video projects. So hopefully I've got my own website. That's the good thing of 2020. I had some time to set things up for myself. So I've set up my own company, got my own website, and have been playing with YouTube. So I say be on the lookout and see what comes for teacher development on YouTube soon.
Wonderful. Well, good luck with that. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we hope you enjoy IATEFL.
I definitely will. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for joining us from home. Thank you.